Asner was in it. Who animated that? Was it like what studio? Just like a random like.
It says Filmation Presents.
Oh, Filmation Presents.
And then it's World Vision Distribution.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This makes up for the stuffed animals.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, we're live.
Oh, Don DeLuise was in it. Oh, hi.
Oh, Don Bluth was in there?
Don DeLuise was in it. I forgot. Yeah, he was the mirror.
Oh, yeah. I remember the voice cast. Even as a kid, I remember being impressive. Even though I didn't know who these people are, like, people reacted to it. Like, it was impressive. All right, so we're live, I guess. So I guess we can either get into it and just start chit-chatting or however you guys want to roll. I'm down to roll into it if you guys want.
Go for it.
Cool.
Sure.
Sounds good.
You lead us, Andy.
Sure. I mean, I'm down. I don't know. This whole doing it digitally is pretty new. We've only did one before, and I thought it went relatively successfully last time, right, Brian and Nick? You guys thought it was pretty good, right?
Yeah, except when I dropped out.
All right. Yeah, your video dropped out but you came back on your phone. It was nice Blair Witch style.
Might get that again.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, everybody, welcome to the Animation Success Stories podcast. We are here digitally again, all in separate locations, recording for you guys, trying to help you guys, teach you guys. Hopefully you guys learn something and get inspired today. If this is your first time tuning in to the Animation Success Stories podcast, also known as ASS, in post we'll add the word ass and glitter in my hands. ASS.
Right.
This is what the goal of the podcast is. Essentially, we talk to animation industry professionals. We learn their stories, where they came from, and how they got to where they are. All of the rivers they had to traverse, and the mountains they had to climb, and the shit they had to trod through in order to get to where they are right now, today in the animation industry. My name's Anthony. I'm here with Brian and Sabrina, and then of course Nick doing all that IT stuff over there for us. Thank you, Nick. Today, in the ass, we have Stephie Theodora. Stephie is head writer at Fox and Sheep, and she's also a story editor on Robot Train on Netflix, or maybe was a story editor of Robot Trains on Netflix. So we're going to learn all about. Well, you still are. Oh, yeah. Cool. Well, I guess learn about that shortly. Cool. So it's pretty exciting to have a writer on. We don't have writers on very often. We usually have people in the doing designs or doing animation or storyboard. So it's really exciting to have a writer on. We're going to hear a whole new perspective today. Hopefully we get some really good advice for you guys that are out there and inspiring animation writers. So Stephie, first of all, thanks for joining us here in the ass.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of the show. Thanks for having me.
That's great that you're a fan of the show. Awesome. So,
I wish we could all be together, surrounded by stuffed animals and wine and pizza.
Oh yeah, I know, right? Oh, we should have all got like some of those little, what are those little like
buzz balls?
What are they called?
Buzz balls.
Yeah,
I remember buzz balls. I miss those.
I miss buzz balls too. Yeah, those were great.
Today is hopefully like we're all okay to socially hang out with each other again. We need to do that.
Yeah. Just get a cooler full of buzz balls. Yeah. So, Stephie, how did you get hooked up with our podcast? I didn't ask. Did you know somebody involved, or were you just a fan that came, or were you just?
Brian and I have been friends for a while. We met on Twitter, I guess, like 3 years ago, and it turns out that we were neighbors as well, and then had loads of friends in common and stuff. So, yeah, Twitter finally did something good.
Nice, yeah. That's the first and only time Twitter will ever.
That's the only reason why I keep it, because I met one super good friend in my life on Twitter, so I keep it.
Super good friend. Well, Stephie, thanks so much for joining us today. We're excited to hear your story.
Thank you. Yes, I'm super excited.
Nice. Well, I guess the first thing we always ask our guest here on Animation Success Stories podcast /ass is, what was your first animation memory? What was your very first animation memory in your life?
So I'm very lucky because I'm at my parents' house where my animation, so it's not the same house that I was born in, but they have all the same things. And I grew up on a farm, so my parents just went and grabbed every VHS tape ever.
Mm-hmm.
From any grocery store or like Price Club and like all the major movies that you can see behind me as well. But
Mhm.
one movie that they got that really changed my world was this 6-hour compilation
Oh, damn.
VHS of all the super old cartoons that came out of Burbank, basically. It says Burbank on it like 1,000 times. Other Burbank cartoons
Those,
available, Burbank video,
Wow,
but
weird.
those
but it's
look like all Fleischer cartoons.
yeah, a lot of them are like yes. There's Popeye, there's Hansel and
Su-
Gretel, there's a Three
Superman, Betty
Stooges,
Boop. Yeah.
but
Little
the
Lou.
big one was for me was Cobweb Hotel. I'm not sure if you guys by Mr. and Mrs. Fly were in it, and they go to and they like the spider is setting up the bed, and it's
I remember that one.
from the 40s,
Yeah.
but these are and it's 6 hours. I don't understand why Titanic came out and it was two VHSs and this is just one, but this was 6 hours of cartoons apparently.
That's amazing. It's 6
But
hours
yeah, that
on
was
VHS.
yeah, because I growing up in Canada, we didn't really have a lot of options, and especially if you were on a farm, we really had like 4 channels. So we were just completely dependent on whatever our parents brought home for movie wise, and this one, yeah, definitely. And then I think that also is what got me in love with Burbank, and when I moved to LA, like I wanted to live where it looked like my dreams of cartoons, right? Like that you felt like you're gonna run into Tex Avery and because
Yeah.
it's amazing. Like you look in backgrounds of Warner Brother cartoons and it looks like Burbank.
I never even made that connection. You're right, because everything is done in Burbank, so I guess that's what they drew from. Yeah, I've never saw a tape advertised that they're Burbank cartoons. It's really
Yeah.
strange.
It's kind of like an anime too. If you notice in a lot of anime, like they do actually draw a lot of actual locations in the backgrounds and stuff, or it does look like places will take place in like Tokyo or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They draw from what they're surrounded by. How old were you when you got that tape?
I think maybe 6.
Wow, nice. That's a good age to be introduced to that stuff because I didn't really discover the classics till I was at least like a teenager, you know. So that's really
Oh yeah.
to
Oh
watch.
yeah, and it was the only bit of like child friendly activity, you know, that you could do because it was either like go play in a snow field, you know, or watch cartoons. So
So you
yeah,
said
it's
you grew up on a farm in Canada?
mhm.
Whoa, neat. Where in Canada?
So in outside of London, Ontario, which is in the Great Lakes region. It's not very far from the States actually. So it's
Okay.
about an hour from Detroit.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Was it kind of like a isolated town? Were you like, was an hour was the nearest grocery store, or were you like, was it more suburban?
About a half hour, yeah, and you couldn't see neighbors, and you know, it's super flat, and it's just cornfields, which are super fun to play around in, and then yeah, like the biggest city, which was London, had about 300,000 people in it.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. Did the cartoons you watched, like the Popeye, Betty Boop, and the Cobweb Hotel, did that stuff inspire how you played through the cornfield? Were you like pretending to be the spider and stuff?
Yeah, I think it instilled an imagination of different viewpoints, especially that spider hotel, to like really imagine about little creatures having their own world and their own beds and their own things, you know. Like I think that because I recognize as a writer, because I went on to write theater for a number of years, and all my theater was very cartoony, and I think that comes from the real like passion and love that I had as a kid for cartoons.
That's pretty interesting. So you were influenced by this stuff from a very early age. So that kind of set the precedent for your mentality and for your sensibilities that kind of came later in your life. Like these little things that your parents got you, these VHS, this kind of creepy, more macabre kind of stuff from the Fleischer kind of influenced you a little bit later in life, which is pretty cool to how that domino effect works.
What was your school life like up in Canada when you were little? Like also kind of pertaining to what you do today?
Oh, you mean like did I study that in university?
Even like way before that, like, do you remember any memories where you tried to like take what you loved about animation or like writing for animation or whatever when you were little and you applied it to like projects at all or anything? Like, were you ever inspired to like how was that?
I think there was always that mystery of like who made cartoons. Like, did they get made by wizards in a forest? There was no like
Yeah.
actual person, especially, my public school or my grade school, I guess you guys would call it, from kindergarten to grade 8 had 200 kids in it. Like, it was very small. And it was also in the middle of a field and nobody around.
Building,
So
just a field, just
yeah.
set in the field, crisscross applesauce.
Like the cool people who came to talk to our school were like cops and
Yeah.
that was always like scary or whatever. And one time I think we had a pilot come, but like
Pilots are
that
awesome.
that was never really. Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many. Hopefully now kids see how accessible it is and that they can do it. But not even in high school really was that on the radar of a potential outlet or something to do. Really, I would say for me.
Did you know that it was a potential at all back then?
I mean, I know that my mom would, at, Christmas dinners make me sing Little Mermaid because I had, everything memorized. And, I have all the movies that were behind me completely memorized, all the voices, all the characters, but I kind of felt like that was also every other kid in the country who was watching that also had that. But when I was 6, actually, I auditioned for a kids theater company, and from the time I was 6 to 18, I was a performer in a kids theater company.
Nice.
So,
Wow.
Did you guys?
that kind of, yeah.
Did you guys ever do like Little Mermaid as a play or anything that you knew?
Summer, so there was a summer camp program, and we did do Little Mermaid, and we did Charlotte's Web, just like reviews of it. But we did 2 musicals every year, so that was also really good practice for just making something and finishing it and then making something else, not toiling away over and over again. But I think that was like a super good muscle to learn as a kid. Just make a project and then it's going to be finished, and not just staying with it. And then just working with, people and learning how to do that. So that was really important, I think, for my whole journey.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure the earning those like people skills, communication skills is probably really important for what you're doing. So I can imagine that being something that is important to instill at an early age. When did you realize like this is what I want to do for a living? When did that click and you're like, boom, I want to make money working in animation? Was that much later in life, or did you realize middle school or something?
Yeah, so long story short, I did theater actually starting in high school. Like, I wrote theater plays, and that took me over to Europe. And then I moved to Europe when I was 22. I moved to Berlin in Germany, and then did a bunch of stuff there. And actually, that moment of I want to do cartoons came to me when I was working at a video games company, and I was there for 4 years at that point. And I was just sitting in a meeting, and I was like, this is a fine life I just made for myself. Like, I came to Germany, I didn't know anybody, didn't speak the language, and now I work at this video game company, and I'm gonna be good forever, like I'll never have to worry.
What was the name of the company?
Wooga. So we did the Futurama game. We did Peril, which was I worked on that, and then we did a bunch of mobile games. But it was a super great, amazing place to work. And actually in Germany, working in games to me was kind of settling for that cartoon thing. I sort of thought, well, I didn't get into cartoons, but I'm in games, and that's fine enough. But I did have a moment during a meeting where I was like, I'm 29 and I'm comfortable. The only other thing I really want to do is do cartoons. And then I thought, shit, that means I really have to pursue that, or I'm going to be mad at myself the rest of my life. So yeah. And then so at 29, I moved down to LA, which was even more complicated because I was Canadian and all that stuff. So I think it's a constant nag on you because that cartoons are always my comfort zone, especially in Germany when I was, I had bad years when I didn't speak the language and couldn't get a job. And my comfort was always watching cartoons.
Mm-hmm. So
it was like therapy.
I can understand that. I think that's therapy for me quite often as well. When you were working at this video game company, so you worked from there from 22 to 29 in Germany? Is that about right?
Yeah, so I moved to Germany. I took my theater company there. I did theater for a year. Then I kind of burnt out and was in a punk band for 2 years
Oh,
and was
cool.
a DJ. And then, yeah, and then got into I interned at a games company and then stayed there, yeah, for a while.
What did you do at the video? What was your role? Were you a writer of the video games?
So originally they hired me to do marketing because they thought I was so aggressive that that'll only fit the marketing team. So that was my internship because I really I worked super hard to even get into that. That's also very hard to break into is games. But then I was a junior game designer, so someone who was like kind of doing QA, but then coming up with ideas with the level designers. And then I moved into game designer, and then I moved into senior level designer, which is just like it's creating the obstacles in the game, but then also like the story narration and the player's experience, and then also deciding like the difficulty and balancing with currencies and players' progressions as well.
Did you need any experience on how to actually code things, or was it just strictly coming up with the ideas?
Yeah, so there's always like these amazing computer engineers. So a team will always have like product people and then people who are engineers and artists. And so we'd have artists who could draw anything, engineers who could code anything. And then as the game designers, we would be working actually primarily in Unity, which is now becoming really popular for animation. They would make little tools so that us like story people could figure out like just drag and drop things and sort of play through and work story out in there. So depending on the game, because every game has different story needs and experiences. So the last game that I worked on was Bubble Island 2, which was basically just a bubble shooter. But we were just creating the experience around that. So like, what are the little cut scenes in between? What is the boss level like? Why a boss level? And then
are they shooting the bubbles this way kind of thing? What does it mean? I get that. That's cool. That's interesting. I didn't realize that. I mean, I never even thought that far into like those games and like how much work and thought goes into all those little things. That makes a lot of sense.
Wait, did you go to college to study this stuff?
No, I went to theater school.
Okay.
I did a bachelor just in theater, and at that time was just doing writing and directing too. So I was always really just creating stuff.
Cool. So you went to oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of buttress that is the fact that your ability to relate story on a stage translates into games for sure, because like you're thinking about how the audience is gonna experience something from a certain point of view, and that's all like theater is. Just like, well, there's your audience, and I have to like play out a stage this way. Animation's really no different.
Yeah, and you would, in like early studio notes would be, from family and friends being like, I didn't get this part about the blah, 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 and so after the play, you would be like, oh, okay, maybe I need to change that. Or reading reviews, definitely very similar muscle has been built and backbone has been built because of reading reviews about your work the next day.
Taking criticism, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you write any plays from like the ground up that were like your own creators?
A lot, actually. Only that was actually what I did from 17 to 22.
Whoa, so cool. And when you performed in the college you went to, or did you do them on off Broadway kind of stages, or like how did you end up? What's the process of doing that? Like you write a play and you have it, and then how do you make it a real thing?
Well, I was really lucky because I'm from an amazing small town that has a big theater community. Okay. And so we had local festivals that you could throw it in. So when I was 17, I wrote a play called Blow This Popsicle Stand, which was about popsicles caught in like stasis. It was kind of like a Twilight Zone, 6 characters in search of an exit sort of thing. Yeah. So very cartoony though, right? Because they're popsicles. Yeah. And that ended up winning a bunch of awards locally, and then I was invited to the Prague Fringe Festival in the Czech Republic, and when I was 18. So that started me touring with my shows, and I did that for a while.
That sounds like almost you're a playwriting prodigy. At like 17 and 18, you're getting your stuff performed. That's pretty.
I think it was because I did the cartoon thing, to be honest.
Yeah. You made them stand out because they had more like a different feel than the other ones. They were like more, I don't know what the word is, cartoony, I guess. I'm trying to think of something else, but yeah, I guess they stood out because of that, right?
Yeah, they were colorful and they weren't theater-y, you know? They weren't like, oh, I was raped in a war-torn country, which is great and awesome, and a lot of people love that. But you know, we just wanted to do like silly things and just absurd premises, and so yeah, that's what we did.
Did you ever do was there any like cool stage dressings or like settings that were made for your plays, like cartoony, like painted backdrops or anything?
Well, we do. So if we did a tour, one show went to 3 different countries. We went to the Czech Republic, then we went to Germany, and then we went to Istanbul. So it had to be all in a suitcase. Yeah. And then another one went to Hong Kong, and that was just like very far and stuff. So actually all of them had no sets and just really colorful characters.
Nice. That's really cool. And you went to all those places when they were performed?
Yeah, so I directed them. So I had to make sure that they also happened.
Quite the world traveler. Very cool. That's very cool.
Games, right?
Pardon?
You started out in games as far as like this industry goes? So,
I would say that.
What was like that very first gig like getting into it, like getting your foot in the door?
For cartoons?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that was when I had this realization at 29 that it was the only other thing that I really wanted to do with my life. I said, okay, I don't have the kind of energy to put up with being an intern again at 29 and working my way up and production assistant and doing all that. Also, I was in Germany, you know, like but there's a couple of people who do cartoons in Germany, and I had been doing a lot of cartoon voices because there's not a lot of native English speakers living in Germany who sound like a child. So I got a lot of weirdo German dubbing jobs. So I knew people were doing it. And one time when I was recording a voice, I asked the guy behind the glass, hey, I really want to be a cartoon writer. What do you think I should do? And he said, oh, you should go to MIP TV. It's in Cannes. It happens before the film festival, and that's where all the TV people go. I'm sure you could meet like somebody there. And so because I had this really good job, you know, threw down $6,000 to go to Cannes and like just went around with business cards and said, hi, I'm a cartoon writer, even though I had no experience whatsoever, and just said that. And, you know, people were so thankful. First of all, really good to me. Like, first of all, no writers go to those things. So it's very cute and charming to a Fox executive that somebody travels, you know, halfway, or I mean, in that case, it wasn't very far from Germany, but that travels there and really is trying to make their way at it, because those executives get approached every day of their lives, except really at those massive festivals, because they're mostly meeting with other executives.
Yeah, let's explain exactly what MIP is. It's not like a traditional, what people normally think of as like a convention. It's really industry convention, which means all those people are all working in the industry. It's not like someone's just like sitting at a table selling their artwork. In most cases, they're selling like product and shows and advertising.
Oh yeah. There's no cost.
That's why it's like a $6,000 ticket.
Yeah, exactly. And they're all there like selling. It's not, and they're all in suits and stuff, and they're business people, really. But I was so lucky to meet an executive from Cartoon Network Europe, who she thought I was nuts that I was even there, and she said, I'll do my best to introduce you to everybody that I know. Wow. And she did that, and then got me like some interviews, and then basically, you know, it's chasing. I think, you know, these opportunities, when you meet these people that can help you, there's also sort of this like shame of like, oh, but I don't want to bother you, and, you know, oh, but I haven't written on anything, and I don't want to embarrass you, and da 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 da. And this woman was so nice and was so like, no, I'll do my best to help you, that was all washed away. And I just said, okay, anything you put in front of me, I'm going to chase to the very end. And one of the executives that she introduced me to was really one of those people who like to. So she said, oh, I'm going to be at this festival if you want to meet me. And so I got a ticket to go to that festival. And then that whole festival, this executive said, oh, I'm busy, blah, I can't meet you. And I found out where she was speaking. And then I went and I sat behind her, like, during this talk. And I said, I'm behind you. And, and I just kept chasing. And actually, in the effort of chasing this one executive who worked on really one of my favorite shows, I met another executive who said, I like the cut of your jib. You can send me a sample. Nobody had ever said, send me a sample. And I didn't even have one, which is, because nobody tells you what you need to do to get a job when you want to do it in writing.
So I have a couple questions from there. That's a lot of stuff. So I have a few. First of all, it's pretty amazing that you like followed this person and sat behind them and you had that all planned out. So that shows a lot of like initiative that you're taking. So like, I guess one thing we're taking away from that is you need to be grinding and you need to be showing initiative and you need to be proactive and you need to actually be making like moves. You can't be sedative. It's not just going to be thrust upon you. But out of curiosity, what show was that? One of your favorite shows, you said?
It was The Amazing World of Gumball.
Oh, it's a wonderful show.
I love that show so much. And if you had an executive from that show, putting little carrots down across Europe, you'd be chasing them too, right? Because it was one of my favorite shows. Like with E.T. and putting down M&Ms, like I would go anywhere. That is one of the best cartoon. Like, you couldn't argue that I would crawl through glass for that job. and that was basically what I was doing while chasing her. But then in the meantime, just met another executive who was just like, I'll hire you on Danger Mouse. It's fine. Which is also like a really cool show. So I was very thankful for that.
What's your question? Go ahead.
Okay. So just for people who are listening to this, because we all kind of like a person, but like, what's your best advice to be persistent without being
annoying,
overbearing?
Yes, overbearing.
Yeah. So yes, and I know that was crazy what I did, and I know people chase me in weird ways, and I'm uncomfortable with it, and it's a very strange. I think especially cartoons, because we're so passionate about it, and the line is really weird. And I feel like in LA too, everybody has a little bit of a, oh, hey, how's it going, like, kind of thing, because everyone's had some experience already with people trying to like get jobs and stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, my advice to that is, if you email someone and they don't email you back, I have like a spreadsheet of everybody that I email in the business, and I turn that yellow, okay? And then in 6 months, and I write what I wrote them, and in 6 months after that, I'll email them again, okay? Yeah. So, and it's because it's not even asking for a meeting or whatever. It's just like, because you always have to, as a writer, you always have to be letting executives know what you're doing. Yeah. Like, hey, how's it going? I saw like your new show. It's really great. I'm doing this. I really love it because I get to whatever on it. But I'm still like open for like freelance or whatever, and you just give updates, right? And so say you send that update to an executive, they don't write you back, I turn them yellow. 6 months later, when I'm doing another check-in with everybody, I see that it's yellow, and I write them another email, and then if I don't hear back, I mark it red, and I don't email them again.
Yep, that's exactly what you should do. You follow up. And then if you don't hear like a second or third time, then you just abandon and move on. There's plenty of other contacts. Because most of the time, they're not responding to you because they don't want to give you an opportunity. They might just be busy, get distracted. So the following up is absolutely really good. And 6 months, I'd say you don't even have to wait 6 months. You can probably do it in under 2.
Yeah, it depends on your relationship and sort of the like how often you see them. But another thing is like get everybody on LinkedIn and put them in your feed and so that they know what you're doing. And if you are feeling close with them, throw them on Facebook as well, but then just be really mindful. Like an executive from FX is on your Facebook. So don't, do anything. And also with Twitter, which is why I never say a bad thing about a show. Although I have to like stop myself like every time because, there's that thing. But because I mean, even now I'm a story editor and I'm hiring writers, and I recognize it's the people that I remember because they're in my subconsciousness through social media that I'm really hiring. It's not like sometimes it can be really good timing that I'm really looking for a writer and I meet someone totally cold at a party and they said I needed writing job and I just go, okay, here, take this. But I think the thing is like that you consistently sort of see the person in your view.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Keep them in your peripheral. Don't let them slip away. Make sure you always have them within, like, I guess, reaching distance. So that makes a lot of sense. So out of curiosity, when you went up and you needed a sample, that person asked you for a sample. It wasn't Gumball. It was somebody else now, right?
Yeah, it wasn't Gumball. Yeah, it was on Danger Mouse.
On Danger Mouse. So you said you didn't have a sample. So how did you end up whipping one up in a night? Did you end up like spending a week, or how did you end up giving? I'm sure you were like, sure, I'll get you a sample. You weren't like, I don't have one. Like, what was the reaction?
Exactly. Yes, it was sure, I'll get you a sample, and then I took the weekend and I wrote a South Park spec called Schools It, like really stupid episode about how like Cartman wanted to be like a refugee or something because it was Brexit was going on and all this stuff. And it was just this like whatever, because I had nobody who knew anything. So I just went back to the games company and underneath like a level design was writing this like script. And then I sent it in and Andrew Peril, who was the head writer, just sent me an email back right away. And he goes, it's a kid's show. And I said, uh-huh. And he said, you got to send a kid's show to me. I can't read a South Park episode and decide.
Episode.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, and he's a very cool person, and he liked South Park a lot, but he said, listen, I need to show the executive team like a sample by Friday, and it needs to be a kid's sample. Mm-hmm. So then I had to throw out a very quick 11, and he said, and it has to be 11-minute because that's what Danger Mouse is. Mm-hmm. So don't try to do anything else. And then I just wrote one very, very fast and sent that in. And
was it a spec script of another show?
No, he said I want, and it needs to be original.
Oh, interesting.
And said, duh, like I didn't know that. And I totally didn't know that at all either. So yeah, and that's always something I tell like other writers, like have originals of the genre you want to write for and that time that you want to write for,
So yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice because you went into that, you were kind of tracking these people down, trying to get your foot in the door, and then they threw a curveball at you, and you were able to adjust and adapt, and you were able to move forward. But yeah, I guess advice for anybody that is trying to be a writer or is a writer and wants to get a foot in the animation door, have spec scripts. Probably, would you say have several, like have an adult, have a kid, have several genres, or do you think just whatever you want to do, have that?
Yeah, I'd say whatever you want to do. I mean, everybody has their own theory and stuff, but I think genre hopping is really difficult to go from kids to adult. I know there's some amazing people who do it. Brian does it. But as like a writer, and especially a writer kind of starting out, you want to be like, so because Danger Mouse was my first job, I came to LA, I was the boys action writer. Like that was... Didn't have a choice in that. All the stuff like this show I'm story editor on, boys action show. I mean, it's for everybody, but it's, it skews that way. And I mean, and as a writer, you don't really have a choice where that river flows. Mm-hmm. I didn't have...
Produced in Los Angeles? I thought it was a British show.
No, that's in England.
It was in England, right? Yeah, that's what I thought.
So I flew to London and got to work with these amazing British writers and just learned and who all had worked on Gumball, by the way. It was really cool.
Get some Gumball crossover.
Yeah, I got to at least be in the room.
Also made in England, right?
Yes, that was the only Cartoon Network show that they did out of their London studio at that time. Yeah.
I was actually at Cartoon Network on Problem Solvers at the time. They actually pulled a lot of American artists and Flash animators to go over there and kind of help them develop it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Stephie, that was like a 5-year production before it finally aired. They spent a lot of time developing that show.
Gumball or Danger Mouse?
Gumball.
Gumball. Yeah. So Ben Bouclet, who was just working for Cartoon Network at the time, just doing like little buffers for Cartoon Network Burbank, he had all of like these like rejected characters that he had created that just weren't accepted for anything, and he decided to put that together in a pitch, and even at that time Cartoon Network Europe wasn't even making anything. They were just a service studio essentially. And then, because it's crazy because that's how one of the greatest cartoons, I would really say, of all time, at least top 20, was created, was this complete accident by people who just really loved what they did. And then, also says a lot about those executives because they weren't even going to be making any original content out of that studio. So for them to like envision a cartoon that had every art style, that had real life photos and backgrounds and video and everything.
It's definitely an amount. When I saw Gumball for the first time, I thought of it as like this more or less like the most, not obvious, but like I saw cartoons kind of going in that direction because you had like that mixed media stuff in like SpongeBob and Flapjack, and then this show just took it and was like, we're gonna do that concept and just explode it and put it to crank it to 11, and like by all means it shouldn't work at all, but it's like so good, it works so well, which is pretty impressive. And you got to work with, I guess, some of those guys on Danger Mouse, which is pretty nice.
That was really fun.
So there were Gumball writers on Danger Mouse, or which?
Toby Wilson, who actually is a character in The Amazing World of Gumball because he's been on it, the show for so long. They made a character of him. He was on that, and I feel like there was a couple of other like freelancers who were coming in and out. So I also have to admit, like getting in there to the BBC and doing my first writer's room was a complete out of body experience that I almost can't. I can remember vividly, but it's.
How does a writer's room for a show like Danger Mouse work? Like, I mean, obviously I've seen writer's rooms on like Rick and Morty and stuff, and they kind of sit around and they throw ideas around. But like, can you explain a little bit exactly for somebody that doesn't quite know what that means? Like what that was?
Sure. So all the writers on the show, or on that season at that point anyway, basically weren't living in London. They all live outside of London because London's crazy expensive. So it was we had a writers summit, and actually they flew me from Berlin to just do this one day in the writers room.
Oh no, we lost Brian.
Brian.
He'll be back. That's what happened last week.
No, Brian.
He'll be back. He's gonna come back on his phone like the Blair Witch Project.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Like
we can see up his nostrils.
Yeah. So they flew you said to Berlin?
No, to London from Berlin. Yeah.
Oh, from Berlin. Okay, to do the.
Yeah.
So did you make the move to London? Did you live in London to write?
You know what? It was all within a 2-month span of me getting that job on Danger Mouse. As soon as they got, the contract from the BBC saying that I was going to be hired to be a writer, I said, that's it. I'm quitting, and I'm everything, and I'm moving to Los Angeles. And I didn't know anybody, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but it was this weird adrenaline rush that I was on. And so I did the Writer's Summit. And so in the Writer's Summit, I said to everybody, well, I'm moving to Los Angeles after this. Like, everyone was, oh, okay, that's interesting.
You were saying Danger Mouse, the writers didn't live in London anyway. So you could live anywhere you wanted to write on Danger Mouse.
Yeah, that show, nobody was in a room. Maybe our head writer Andrew, he was there, and of course our executives team, they were in the office there, but everybody else, the writing team was in other places. Most of them were British, and they were and really just like outside London, so because it's so crazy expensive in London as well. And so the writer's room was just, we'd look at the season together. We'd talk about like the story arcs that we kind of want to hit, character development. Yeah. Depending on the show, there could be a toy team sitting there. Yeah. And everybody just kind of pitching ideas, and then them sort of handing out episodes to everybody.
I see. So that was all, you guys were all in a room for that. But then you kind of went your separate ways to do the actual writing. Is that how it was?
Yeah.
You kind of all collaborated. You came together. You looked at the season, who's going to do what, who's going to hit these points. You assigned an episode per person. Hey, Bill, you get this episode. Joe, you get this episode. Stephie, you get this episode. Everybody break. I'm going to Los Angeles. Peace. And then you wrote your thing.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, it's all coming together.
And you send in scripts, and then 10 people read it and tear your heart out and, make you question your existence and all that stuff. And then you cry, and then you rewrite it, and then you send it again, and then they send you,
That's actually a good point to hit on just for a second, because I know a lot of people that watch our podcast. Some of them are younger, about to get into animation. Some of them are a little older, and some of them are doubting their choices of working in animation or not. So when you get hit with a feeling like that, when you get hit with, oh shit, they hated the writing I did. Oh no, what am I going to do with my life? How do you deal with that? How do you move past that? And can you explain a little bit about your process you go through?
It gets easier anyways, so it's very hard. Of course, it's awful and it sucks. And some writers, to be honest with you, some story editors and some executives have no mercy. It's almost like they take out their bad day on you and this script. And you also too, you're in, when you get hired on a show, you're hired on a show with guys from Harvard who wrote on the Lampoon. You're hired with people, who worked on with David Letterman, wrote for David Letterman. So there's always going to be that feeling of like, oh man, I just went to theater school and was in a punk band for a while. And then, so you always feel like you're not really up to stuff with everybody else. But yeah, I mean, to be a cartoon writer, you have to have the stamina of a boxer. That is, and that also includes with people bitching you around, that executive that dragged me, really could have at any time just said, look, you don't have enough experience, stop emailing me. Absolutely could have said that. Yeah. Did not say that, led me around, wasted a lot of time. And that happens to a lot of people. And I don't think that's talked about enough, really, because there is a lot of energy that you do put into chasing these jobs. And sometimes people are not understanding the sacrifices that you're making. So stamina of a boxer, but keep the heart of a poet. Actually, I saw the Clone High guys talking at a festival once, and they said that, and I thought it was absolutely bang on for animation writing. You must keep
that phrase.
Stamina of a boxer with the heart of a poet to be an animation writer.
Phil Miller, Chris Lloyd said that?
Yes, they did. Nice. And they have been through some boxing matches, those two. Yeah.
They got kicked at a Star Wars movie, right?
Yes, they did. And actually, at that festival, it was at the Glass Animation Festival in Berkeley. They announced it at that talk. It had just happened to them. Yeah, and Clone High was amazing, and they got into so much trouble for that.
And it's coming back.
It's coming back. Yes, it's coming back. It's really exciting. But yeah, that's the thing, and it's always hurdles. It's the writer. As a writer, you have to go through hurdles, and hurdles might be 8 draft rewrites. And you have to measure yourself and stamina for that.
So the Danger Mouse was your first big animation writing gig, right? So when you went and you sat down at your computer and you were like, all right, I was assigned this episode. I need to write about the Danger Mouse doing this, this, and this. How did you approach that? What went through your head, and how did you come up with your first draft of your script?
So I do want to really credit the executive producers of the show as well as our head writer, Andrew, because they all knew I was Little Miss Green behind the ears. And so that was so nice, like sitting down with them and they're like, okay, we know you've never done this before, but we need to start with an outline and, and walk me through like every step of the way for the episode. So you would start basically so they'll give you, so you'd pitch in the room, oh, I want to do an episode where Danger Mouse breaks his leg and he has to sit at home and he's looking through the window and it's kind of like a rear window kind of episode like they did in The Simpsons or in the movie. And then you start to, Brian's back. Yay.
So before you go any further, quick question. When you went to the writer's room for the first time in London, when they flew you there from Germany, did you come with like a list of just a million ideas, or did you just go with like whatever comes out of my face is that?
I had a list of pitches.
Cool.
Because so they say, okay, who's got an idea for like an episode?
Cool. That makes the most sense. And obviously, did they give? I mean, I don't know if they did or not, but did they give you like before you went there of topics that are like appropriate to pitch? Like, we want to do adventure ideas. We want to do like weird genre Western ideas, or was anything goes?
Well, I pitched that episode about Rear Window, and complete obvious, don't put your action character in a wheelchair for the whole action episode.
Oh, that makes sense. So that was the feedback you got?
Yeah, and totally shot down and woo, dream smash, because, I thought it was like the most brilliant idea I ever thought of. So, yeah, and then actually it was, I think Andrew said to me, oh, you have this DJ background, maybe we could do something with that. And so then it was about like kind of crafting an episode around a DJ, like a evil villain DJ who was like an octopus and just brainwashed everybody with the music.
And his tentacles are all DJing different things.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool. Cool. That's
to LA after all that?
Pardon?
Did you actually end up moving to LA?
Yes, I did. Yes, yeah. So I just started telling everyone that I was doing it because I also didn't believe it myself. None of my friends in Germany thought I was going to do it. And they also said to me, but you don't like know America at all. And I didn't have a visa either. And so I said, okay, I'll keep my apartment in Germany. And if I fail horribly, I'll just come back. And then it was like 3 weeks before I moved there, I got a call from an agent in LA, and they said, hey, we heard through the grapevine that you're moving, because I was so loud and stupid about it. I was just saying to everybody that I was going to do this, just to also make sure that I did it. Yeah. And he said, if you come down to LA, I'll represent you and introduce you to everybody.
That's pretty cool. So you basically talked it into truth. You set yourself up that you said it, you were going to do it so much that if you did it, you'd be like, you'd be eating your own words. Yeah, so you were just, I'm going to say it until it happens. I'm going to start saying that I'm going to find $1 million on the ground.
Hey, Jim Carrey did that. Jim Carrey wrote himself like a check for $1 million and ended up cashing it later. There is something in that naive hope and belief that will happen.
I think sometimes the people with the most idealistic attitudes, the ones that are like not even realistic to achieve, but they don't know, they're naive and they don't understand that that's not realistic. Like 1 out of every 10,000 of those types of people actually do what they set out to do, even though it's completely like unrealistic and inconceivable for them to do it. So I think those people sometimes make the biggest difference, and they start like the new wave, and they just basically make a big splash, and people take notice of that. Because holy shit, how did that person do that?
I know. Yeah.
I see that happen every once in a while. So, how long were you on Danger Mouse?
So just got 1 episode, but then I'd moved to LA, and that new agent of mine introduced me to everybody in town, which was just amazing. I got to meet all the executives and studios, and I got hired right away by Hasbro on Hanazuki with Dave Polsky, who I was a big fan of. That was amazing because he wrote Scary Movie 2, he wrote on South Park, and so it was just like the first time actually meeting people that you really admired.
So
yeah, and then yep.
I was going to say the agent that you got real quick, because you said you were just so loud that an agent just called you, which is pretty like I've never heard of that happening before, but I guess maybe that might be more of something that happens with writers, or maybe it's something that just happens only to you. But what do you mean you were so loud? Like, what steps did you take, and what were you saying when you say you were so loud that made an agent actually like call you? Because let's say like somebody's listening that has like a similar personality, a very outgoing personality like you, maybe they can do something similar and get noticed that way.
So at the festival, I went to Hennessy, I went to MIP, and I went to this one in Stuttgart, FMX, which is a really great festival. And when you get tickets to all these animation festivals, and really not cons, that's really important, right? So there's like always professional badges and stuff. With cons, it's totally different. We're talking about like industry places where people buy cartoons internationally. This is the kind of festival that we're talking about. When you buy a ticket for those festivals, Hennessy, you get a complete database of everybody who's a badge holder, and you can look up, you can just search executive, and it'll say there's 4,000 executives going to Hennessy, and these are all of them. And I just cold emailed all of those people and said, hey, I'm a writer, I'd love to pitch you, because I did have pitches at that time, because there's been cartoons and stuff that I've had for a long time that I've wanted to make, and stories that I've wanted to tell. So actually what happened in Hennessy, I sat down with Aaron Davidson, who's now an executive at HBO doing all their animation, and at that time he had just started at Amazon, and he was an executive, and I pitched him a really bad show that had no. It was obviously a show from somebody who had no experience or no idea of the industry, but somebody who was passionate. And he just said to me, where have you come from anyway, that you're at this festival and that you're living in Germany and whatever? And I said, yeah, I really, really want to be in cartoons. And actually, I'm going to move to Los Angeles. Is that where you live? And he said, yeah. And I said, cool, I'm going to move there, and I don't know anybody, and I'm really going to pursue it. And then he said, well, maybe I can get somebody to help you. And he told an agent and just said, there's a little nobody green writer who's chasing executives all over Europe and emailing them constantly, and she's coming to LA and she doesn't know anybody if you want to represent her.
So it was a lot of like talking to these executives, getting your name out there, and just making yourself known at these, not festivals, what were they called? What would you call them? Festivals?
Well, some people call them markets.
Markets. Cool.
Yeah. Like Kid Screen is a market.
But it's the main thing about these things that you went to, they were for professionals. They weren't people selling art. They were for professionals. Cool. So go to those, make yourself known, talk to people, look up the list of executives, and just start emailing.
If you really want to do it, that's a lot of the hustle, and it's about being nice and respectful and sincere, and like saying, pitching a bad cartoon and then realizing after, actually, I've never really pitched a cartoon before, and I don't even know how people pitch them, and I've never even seen like a show Bible before in real life and stuff, and being that honest and when there's a sincerity, then I feel like people want to help you.
Yeah, I think at least a lot of the people that I've encountered, they can tell when somebody is sincere and earnest, and they can tell when somebody is putting on an act just because they want to, whether it's make money or like schmooze or like get somewhere and like take advantage of people. I think the sincerity and earnestness really comes across when you talk to somebody that actually has passion for what they're doing, which is you see a lot of fake people in LA, but you also see an equal amount of really passionate people.
Yeah. So my advice would be to get like a sample together that really is about the thing that you love, like has all the jokes that you love, is in the world that you love, the characters that you love, really is like a piece of your soul, and have that together first. Because my big mistake was I went and harassed everybody for jobs, and then finally when someone said, okay, I'll read your work, I didn't have anything, and so it's so much about having that thing ready, so that when you do meet somebody and you do the business card thing, then you go, okay, I've got the sample, I send it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. Yeah, so have those samples ready.
Job.
Brian, type out your question because you're coming in like a robot. Brian's here, everybody. He's just he's just
a demon.
He's possessed by a demon. Yeah.
It does look like that. Yeah.
So I guess Brian has a question for you. We'll see if he can type that out. Is there a little chat thing somewhere?
Yeah, if he types in the chat, it'll show up in our little boxes over his like icons. So if anyone types in the chat, it'll like show up on the screen.
Yeah, I typed in it a moment ago.
It freaked me out. I thought I did something.
Well, I guess while we're waiting for Brian to type up his question, or maybe he just had a comment. While we're waiting for him to type that, I have a question for you. So you were on Danger Mouse. You moved to LA. You wrote your Danger Mouse script, and that got made into an episode of Danger Mouse. And that was only one episode you did for Danger Mouse, right? So what was the next step? You had an agent. An agent came to you because of this. These people that you talked to at these markets. What was the next step that the agent helped you, or maybe the agent didn't help you? But what was the next step that you got to? What was the next show you worked on?
Yeah, no, the agent was amazing. He took me by the hand and introduced me to everybody. Like I was at Warner Brothers, I was at Disney, I was at DreamWorks, I was at companies I had never heard of before, and was really welcomed with open arms.
Working there, or you were like meeting?
Nope, just general meetings. So that's the other thing that you will get to know about living in Los Angeles. You will go to hundreds of general meetings that are really nice and never will amount to anything, or maybe they will. So just going around and sitting with execs, and then at that time the election had just happened, and so actually I walked into a studio and an executive said to me, I don't want to talk about cartoons. I don't want to talk about anything about animation. Just answer me one question. Why are you not running out of this country screaming right now? Because I just saw that I just moved here. So being ready for that, right? You go, you think you have a meeting at Nickelodeon, for example, and you go, oh, I can't wait to talk to them about all the Nickelodeon shows that had a big impact on my life. And then you get in there and then the person doesn't want to talk about that stuff. So these general meetings were just so important for people to get. And then they always ask you too, like, what do you like to write? What do you feel like your voice is? And one thing that I always felt, because I was always into like kind of weirdo music, and I was living in different places, at this fish out of water thing, this like feeling that you don't belong, and really relating to that. And that was something that like I felt like I could contribute a point of view, especially like living in Germany, where I was just in like a completely different world. So I was put on shows like that. So the next show after Hanazuki that I was hired on was Littlest Pet Shop, and that was called World of Their Own, and it was about these animals that once they truly are loved get to go to like a vacation world where it's like vacationing all the time. So somehow that I was fit into that stuff. So basically, as a freelance writer, you can write on multiple shows at a time. And you don't have to, most of the time you do have to go in for like writers' summits or even just breaking story. And then you go home and then you write it, and it's just, making deadlines and sending drafts in and getting notes back.
So for Hanazuki and for Littlest Pet Shop, that was freelance. So you weren't in studio, you were writing and sending in your scripts.
Yeah, we would be. So Hanazuki, we went actually in for Littlest Pet Shop. We were there quite a bit at Hasbro.
You were
because there was the toy team, and there's a lot of discussions on directions and stuff, and they kept us, but we wouldn't actually be writing in there. It was always these meetings. So we would do like entire day summits.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain to some of the younger viewers out there, like, can you explain to what the terms like writer summit means and breaking story means?
Sure, yeah. So everybody will come to the room, with some ideas for some episodes. So I was thinking it'd be fun if, there was like a lightning thing and people... so Brian's asking if I had to learn on the job. Of course, yeah, absolutely. Everything, is learning on the job. So you get invited to a writer's summit, you come in with ideas, you pitch it, and then these people have been on the show for a couple of years already, so they can tell you why a lightning show won't work, or they can tell you why, these things. And then so you start to understand. And then somebody goes, oh, I really had a good idea for this episode. And then the team will help them. Like, yeah, you should do that episode. And a lollipop should get stuck in the hair. And then they have to like get it out with peanut butter or whatever. And then it just like, and so then everybody builds on that. And then the writer kind of just takes notes and goes, okay, cool, thanks. And then the head writer will help you. So that's a comfortable room.
Yeah.
Where people have already been hired. Sometimes a studio will just say, okay, we're going to take these 10 writers and put them in a room, and we're going to pick 4 of them to actually write on the show. So that is this kind of competitive, very
like Survivor.
It is, and you have to do very passive aggressively, like thank people for shooting down an idea of yours or totally taking it, or because it's this psychology of
like you're playing mind games or something with each other.
Yeah, and I think actually that's how we were hired on Hanazuki, and I actually did a really poor day in the room, like pitching ideas. I was like, oh, what about this? No, you can't do that. Like, oh, okay. Oh, what about this? No, you can't do that. Okay. And by the end of it, like really none of my ideas were taken, but I was still one of the 4 hired on the show because I kept trying.
Yeah.
And also I didn't lose my cool, when somebody completely, which I think was a pedigree that I totally learned from being in video games and working in an office every day and stuff. But there's also like a big maturity thing for that as well. Taking criticism, taking those bad situations and not punching a wall, or doing it punching a wall where nobody sees you do it.
Yeah, I think like not losing your cool, I think is an important thing as well, because I think in an environment like that, it's really easy to, just kind of go off the deep end and get upset with people shooting down your ideas. But that's going to end up happening so much in those types of environments that nobody's going to want to work with somebody who's a short fuse. The people you want surrounding you is somebody who can stay even keeled and cool-headed, So even if, somebody else had more ideas that were accepted than the ones you pitched, they saw you and they're like, all right, this person's going to be easy to work with. Plus they have some really good ideas as well. And that's, I think that's a good advice for somebody that's watching, like keep your cool. And that kind of goes back with our always don't be a dick advice. We're always saying, don't be a dick.
Right.
Yeah, sure. And it looks like Brian left again. Brian's having some trouble.
Doesn't love us.
It's all right, Brian. You're here in spirit, man.
I have a question. So was there ever a period of time amongst all of these freelance gigs or jobs where you were kind of going through a dry spell and you were concerned, especially living out here in LA? Was there ever a point where you're like, oh shit, what am I going to do? And there was like a really long period of time where you had nothing coming in. And what did you do?
So I was working at Disney on a show, and I was working at Hasbro on a show, which was like a lot of work and was driving me crazy, to be honest. It was a lot. And then I was sitting at Nickelodeon in the waiting room just to have a general meeting with somebody, and I just pulled down my email, and in the same span of 15 minutes, the Disney show that I was on got pulled back into development, and I lost that job, and then the Hasbro show got canceled. So I was sitting in Nickelodeon like, okay, God, what do I do now? And was just totally in shock. And then I went into the room, and it was actually with one of the interactive guys, Garrett, over at Nickelodeon, who wanted to meet me because I was in games and he knew my old game company and stuff. And I went in there and he goes, oh, you just moved here and all this stuff. And I said, man, I really need a job. Can you give me a job? I'll take it in games. I don't care. Don't even worry about cartoons. I'll just go back into games. I really need a job. And he said, okay, maybe I can help you. But actually, and he did introduce me to a bunch of stuff, and I went for a bunch of game interviews. But for like 2017, yeah, just completely white knuckled. And then also just like went so into debt that I just couldn't go back to Germany. So that was really interesting as well. So Yeah, that absolutely happened. And then the visa that I ended up getting was this O1 visa, so I was only allowed to be an animation writer.
Oh,
And so I went to get like a job at like a dog kennel, and my visa papers said that it was illegal for me to work at any other job other than being a cartoon writer. So I couldn't get anything.
get another cartoon job, huh?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
so
I didn't know that was
that
a
happens.
visa that existed. You can only have one specific type of job.
It's called an O1, so it's supposed to be like this extraordinary ability, which means that not a lot of people can do it. So that means then only you can do it, and you can't do anything else.
No, that's very strange that they pigeonhole people like that. I mean, I guess it makes sense because yes, being an animation writer is a very specific thing that not everybody can do. But you should be able to, like, work at a yogurt place if you want to. Like,
Nope,
no.
no chance. Not legally, anyways. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this time when you were saying you were like in debt a little bit and you were looking for a gig, and how did you end up climbing out of that hole?
Making stuff, like being creative, and that's what's getting me out of the lockdown hole, like just and actually, and I did spend some stupid time chasing, because studios sometimes will say to agents, we're looking for the next doll line, ask your writers to write something, right? And you can spend like 3 months working on some stupid doll line pitch that you never really imagined that you'd do, but you thought, okay, this is sort of an opportunity. So stuff like that. But then I went and was like, okay, I don't have a proper sample, first of all. So, because that was the other thing, I was just sort of riding on that one thing that I wrote really quickly at my games company, in a couple of days. So I worked on building out a new sample. Then at that time too, from that sample, I made like a pitch Bible and a whole like show out of that. Because yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask, at this point, did you already work on Danger Mouse, or this was before that?
Yep, that's all. Yeah.
Could you had your Danger Mouse as a sample, or no?
So, no, if it's not on TV yet. So I wrote Danger Mouse in 2016. That episode did not see the light of day until 2018. Really 2 years later. So that's the other thing, is like when you first break into cartoons as a writer, your work, I mean, as storyboarder, as anything, but your work will not be seen for like 2 years after that, right? So you might have got the credit, but no one will ever like see you something and your name will be on it, because animation just takes so long. Yeah. So that momentum, so that first 2 years really has to be you being like, I got on one show, can I please get on another show? Please get me on that. And then, all that stuff still takes so long to air.
So you were whipping up more samples at that point, trying to hustle.
Yes, and then also just like trying to hustle. But then understanding, like, then you kind of realize that you have to be like self-care, and that how crazy you can make yourself with this whole industry, because it can drive you totally mental if all of a sudden you can't get a hold of anybody, your agent doesn't pick up the phone, you're like, what is this whole thing? And like, there's so many ups and downs and waves and stuff of that. So actually, I went camping in 2017. Like, there was a breaking point where I was like, I'm not going to sit and stare at the phone. I'm just going to try to enjoy my life, because if I don't, I'm just going to turn into this bitter person. Mm-hmm. And then nobody will want to hire me, because I'm just already so bitter.
Yeah, so you needed to kind of just take a quick breather, kind of reset yourself.
I think that, and I think you always need to do that after like getting off of a show. If you're on a show for 3 years and then it gets canceled, and then you just anxiety about the next job, which is what our careers in animation is. What's my last job? What's my next job? You have to really just reset, because you turn on Twitter and like everybody has a job, it feels like, and that could totally eat away at you. And so like that was a really good thing to happen to me kind of out of the gate. After doing 3 shows where I thought, well, I've had 3 shows under my belt, I'm sure I'll be hired all the time. Mm-hmm. And then actually what happened was that really great agent said to me, I thought you'd be getting more work, and he dumped me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like this stuff happens all the time and is a regular, and it's all about your stamina.
Yeah. So after you kind of reset yourself and you kind of took the camping trips and whatever, how was your next in the industry? What was your next step inside animation?
So it was really good to lose that agent because I was always thinking that he was getting me jobs and making phone calls for me. And he probably wasn't, because I was his small little newbie client, and he had some really big people who were making really big things. So once you lose that agent, you realize what cards you have in play, and you realize that it's up to you. And sometimes I really recommend that to people, is not to have those people, because you have this false sense of security. So I just emailed every single person that I ever met and went back into general meetings, and Mattel hired me, and that was awesome, and they saved my butt, and then slowly started getting jobs. And then what was really lucky, my friends in Germany said, hey, can we hire you to bring us into the cartoon industry?
Wow. And they came out to LA?
Agent for people.
What?
I was you would make a great agent for people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they dumped you, so you became your own agent. You became other people's agent. So you brought people from Germany to Los Angeles?
No. So I got hired by Fox and Sheep so they're a well-known kids games company who we all were very close when I was in Germany, and we worked together at this old company, Wooga. They have all these games, and they really wanted to get into cartoons. And I said, cool, I can be your head writer and transform all of that stuff for you. So that also just says to you are always looking forward in the animation industry. You're always looking for the next job. You're always just showbiz. That's always how it is. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you need to take a pause and go, who I love? My friends. And when we have the most fun is when we're together. And the stuff that we make together is like lightning in a bottle, and really acknowledging that. Because you chase these strangers. Like, I got hired at Warner Brothers, and it's all just strangers, and you're just you're making things with strangers, which is difficult. But there's something that happens when you're with friends and you love them, and you have this thing. And that's the thing with me and my friends at Fox and Sheep. So I quickly just, told them everything about Hollywood that I had learned in 2 years. So I had only been living in LA for 2 years. I just said, okay, so there's these executives, and they have these meetings, and they're called generals, and they always want to know what's going on, and you got to bring them stuff in, and they always want to have art. And they said, okay, so what should we do with our games? And I said, okay, so we'll make this thing called a pitch Bible, right? And so it was really good for me to kind of remember everything. And I said, let me just send emails. Maybe people don't want to meet with me anymore. Who knows? And sure enough, everybody wanted to meet, and I said, cool, I got this game that was a game, and now we want to make a show out of it, and this, and so and I sold the show for us. Nice. So we got a development deal with a Canadian studio on the show, and we're making that, and which is a whole new experience. But yeah, there's a lot of, I did totally get saved by that whole experience, and it was a big learning lesson about your friends.
What what can you say? What show you sold, or is it not? You're not allowed to say right now.
Probably can't say, but it's based on one of our games that we've made.
Nice. And this is at Fox and Sheep Digital Studios that you did this, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we do game, and then so we worked with Spotify, and we did an audio play series, and then we have a book series coming out. So we're just sort of building out all of our game brands into TV shows and other things.
Cool. So your title is head writer at Fox and Sheep. Is that what you would call yourself over there?
That's right. Yeah.
Nice. So what's like a daily week, or let's say what's a week of a head writer at Fox and Sheep?
So I'm 6 hours behind them right now. So I always wake up to emails and things that we have to do. Oh, that's okay. Do we have to stop?
No, that might give my feed my cat alarm. He can wait.
Oh.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, before the cat attacked you.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's always tons of different things that we're doing. So this week we're mounting another pitch deck, getting that ready. We have the show in development, so we're kind of figuring out like, where. So when you have a show in development with the studio, you sort of figure out where your backbone is with the project, because you decide, how much are you going to bet? Because if someone might say, oh, instead of a cat, can it be a dog? And you have to go, do I really care about that? Is that worth a fight? So we're kind of laying that stuff down, and we have 2 books coming out. So right now we're just figuring out like the copy for the social media accounts, and they're coming, and just sort of keeping all the relationships going that we have, and then getting ready for a show in production.
Mm-hmm. And so it's basic. As a head writer, anything that gets written, copy, whether it's copy in books or like the script for a pitch deck or anything, it's going to be run by you at Fox and Sheep Studios.
Yes, and then if we have to get other writers involved, or also have and there's a lot of, to be honest, there's a lot of strategy that goes into building out your brand into like the TV world, and sort of deciding, okay, do we show this to Netflix now, or do we wait to get some celebrity on it, and then, okay, we're going to get that celebrity. Okay. So then that's usually my job as well, to go figure out how we're going to do that. And, and then work out like a lot of the creative, because we've only been doing all of that stuff for like a year really right now. So it's still figuring out. We're a very small company as well. We're only 7 people.
Oh, wow. Cool. Nice. Well, I love small companies are always more intimate, I feel, and they always have more synergy,
How have recent times affected you personally, and then your job?
Yeah, so I'm a story editor on Robot Trains, so I'm overseeing season 3, which is 56 episodes, and right now we have 26 of those done, but we have those at different stages of production. So I'm right now in Canada. Even normally I'd be in Los Angeles, but my storyboarding team is in Italy, but then it gets animated in South Korea, and then it gets sent back to Paris, and then it gets dubbed in New York. So when the stuff started happening in Italy, I immediately thought like that job is going to be not existent. But the thing is, we have a complete commitment to all of our, Robot Trains is on Netflix, it's on Amazon, it's everywhere, and we have a delivery to make, and they did not skip a beat, honestly. And even when I would be like, it's okay if we take a week off because things seem bad there and stuff, nothing. Like production went ahead as scheduled with that one. Of course, with Hennessy didn't happen this year, which probably would have been a place where a lot of deals would have been made for shows and distributions and stuff. So there was this online thing that everybody sort of tried to do. The other thing is a lot of people are really stuck with kids and work and have half of the time that they had before. So a lot of little things like that that would normally be happening when people are able to go to the office aren't happening, and so there is just sort of an acceptance of not everything is business as usual, but certain machines are still seeming to go. Mm-hmm. But there is a complete like respect of it being down. Like voice auditions, I've had tons of voice auditions. Like that seems to be going, and animation more than ever seems to really voice acting. Yep. Just auditioning.
Do you have your own recording studio in your place?
Yes.
A handful of my oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I know a handful of my friends who are voice actors. They have their own little recording booths in their house. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, usually I would have to go to my agent's office, but they were one of the first people to not have us come in during everything. So that I think that was really good call. Actually, when we got that email saying, "Oh, we're not going to have people come into the studio and audition," I thought, well, that's a bit silly. But then a week later, it was like, "Oh, that was a really good call. That's good they did that." Okay.
Cool. So I think we're pretty much caught up to the present at this point, right? Because you're still story editor on Robot Trains, right? And you're head writer at Fox and Sheep, and that's currently what you're doing. What's it like writing? 'Cause as a story editor, are you also writing, or are you just taking other people's scripts and kind of chopping them up? Like, what is a story? Can you explain what a story editor does?
Sure. So story editor is like the main point in between the studio and the writers. So I'm the one who actually I get to pick all the writers. I give them an episode. So I have already sat down with the studio before. This probably was a year ago. And I said, cool, 56 episodes. This is what I'm thinking. Certain amount of episodes with this. Then the toy team would say, well, but we need to have something with the rocket board. And okay, yeah, you're right. I'll make sure there's a rocket board episode, whatever. So then I have all that knowledge of what the studio wants. And so it's my responsibility as story editor to communicate that to every new writer that I bring on the project and say, okay, this is what we're really going for. And really like hone that writer to the voice of the show. Yeah. And to so be the bitchy person who gives back notes but I really try to be nice and then when I think that the script is ready, then I pass it to the studio.
I see. So all the scripts go through you and you kind of toss them back before they get ready. So I'm sure coming from somebody who wrote scripts and turned them in and got notes over and over again, like from all these different sources, you probably have a new lens when people are sending you scripts and you're kind of trying to not do your worst experiences that you had with that in some way.
Yeah, and I see how every different writer has a completely different lens and a completely different experience, and so like I have to say, look, I'm the type of story editor who doesn't want you to send a half-written, thought-out idea full of spelling mistakes and stuff, because I've worked with veteran writers who were staffed at huge studios who worked in the 90s, who were just used to a different kind of gig, and so you kind of need to create, as story editor, the culture of the show and the expectations, like deadlines. Like I really believe in deadlines.
For sure. So the culture of the production of the show is what you
yeah.
Also, so you're doing that, but you're also coming up with like the actual plot lines of the show as well. Like you're pitching that stuff to the studio and stuff, right?
Yeah, most of the time. Is that me? I think that is me. Wait.
Wow, what happened?
I have a funny setup here. Well, let's see.
Just do it in.
Oh no, there's no power in Canada. Something happened. Wait, this should do it. I got it. There we go.
I was like, how did the power go out? But you're.
Oh yeah, it was. I think. Anyways, so wait. Too much. Done.
There you go.
What was the question again?
I was saying, as a story editor, so you're coming up with like the culture of the production and like the types of scripts you want to turn out. Okay, no grammar, no spelling mistakes. I hate that. But you're also coming up with like the plot points of the show. That's you who's coming up with that stuff in the season arc. Or I don't know if Robot Train actually has a season arc. But
we're episodic, but so the big thing is because of some of the other episodes and because of the audience and stuff, I really wanted to have just some sincere girl power happen in our show, which was something that was missing, and I think also was a reason why I got the job, was because we wanted to have so I'll say you write like a starter pack for your writers, and I'll say if you've got funny jokes and lines, give them to your girl characters. And don't make the girl character a pain for the boy characters, and don't make the girl characters hate each other, and and then it's an action show, so just make it about action. And so now after 26 episodes, I know who my favorite writers are, and so they just have jobs with me, so I don't really bring in anybody new and bring them through the whole thing again.
Nice. Well, I have a couple questions now that we're caught up to the present. I have a couple just kind of questions to cap things off that I'm really interested in. First off, what would be your dream project to write on? What genre? What type of, even if it existed already, you can say Samurai Jack or something. What would your dream project be to write on?
I mean, I really do love it's stupid, but I love what I'm working on now with robot trains. Like it's I never thought I'd be doing preschool, so robot trains is the bridge. Fox and Sheep, we just do preschool stuff, but it's only kind of a big realization that happened to me like the last 6 months is that us as preschool writers can really change the way that kids see the world and the role of the world and what is around them and how they treat each other.
Yeah.
And because if you kind of go, geez, the problems in this world, how are we going to get out of it? It's these Zoomers and it's sort of the new guys. So that actually means a lot to me, and being able to like work on anything that has an audience and you know, I was watching the Babysitters Club. The new Babysitters Club is out, and they did an episode about a trans child, and but they did it in such a great way. You know, it wasn't preachy, it wasn't over the head. It was just really nice, and so I'm always just kind of open, like, for new things, because so many things have surprised me up until this point. And I know, like, that Gumball thing, like when I didn't get on Gumball, you know, that was the last time that I wanted to like sort of be upset. I also tried out for Saturday Night Live. I didn't get on that. You know, it just like
as a performer?
no, as a writer,
Okay.
Yeah,
I know
so
theater too, so I don't know which.
no, you send a writer's pack in, and it felt like maybe something was happening because they also like made me sign some paperwork and stuff. So I was like, oh, maybe it'll still actually happen. So I've sort of learned not to just be like into one show and go after that. I love a lot of stuff, and the new stuff that's coming out, like Midnight Gospel. I don't think I'd ever be able to write that. Like, I love it. It's great, it's therapy, it's what I need, but it breaks my brain to even like and to take it apart and stuff like that. And so it's also like there's a lot of stuff that I love, but even being able to admit like out of my wheelhouse, you know.
Yeah, sure. And Midnight Gospel was fantastic. So what would some advice you have? Let's say there's an aspiring writer listening to this right now. They love animation, they love watching all different cartoons. What would an advice be, or some advice be, for an aspiring like 17-year-old writer just about to finish high school?
So like make stuff, you know, and don't toil on something for 2 years. Like do something, get notes from your friends on it, see what it would be like to get it animated. If you know, there's a lot of different people you can reach out to. Like, don't sit alone in your own island wishing and following people who do this stuff, but make stuff, because making stuff is like the muscle of the whole creative process. So get used to that blank page and how paralyzing that is, because once you get over that, and then you can go into the next blank page.
Yeah.
And even just like the small stuff, because the other thing is, I think it's very intimidating to be like, to go online and see how many people have tons of followers on Instagram and stuff, and you go, oh, no one's gonna like my thing, or it really feels hard to put yourself out there. But do it, you know, or make stuff and then don't put it out there.
Just make it for muscle memory, yeah.
Yeah, because that's how you're also going to get yourself out of lockdown misery as well. As long as you're creating something that is so good for people who are creative, that's what you need to do.
Yeah. So something you said a second ago, like, reminded me of, you said don't toil over it for 2 years, which I know. And also earlier you said you wrote that South Park spec script. So that in my head, I went to the little South Park documentary that came out like 6 or 7 years ago, and I remember I remember Trey Parker saying, like, he doesn't want to, with his scripts that he writes, because he ends up writing like 90% of the episodes, he doesn't want to spend like a week on the script to make it 1% better. So like, how do you know when to stop editing your scripts?
When you love it, when you read it and you go, I like that part. Oh yeah, that worked. You know, and I just wrote a feature, And I never had that feeling. It took me 6 months to write the feature, and I never had the feeling that I loved it. And I took like a month break from it, and then I kind of had a realization why I didn't love it. And then so that can happen as well. So there's also the ability to give it space. But yeah, it's putting stuff out and learning, like go to Justin Roiland's website. Look at all the stuff he made.
I have. Dude,
you know?
It's insane.
Unbelievable. Like
And
just
it's all like, so some of it's hard to watch, but he made so much stuff in the beginning.
Silly and like, where did it come from? But then you see where the seed was planted for some idea later on, you know?
Yeah, for sure. You can see in Rick and Morty, you can see an amalgamation of all of the crazy bullshit he used to do when he was like in his 20s. You know, like the unmarketables and like that family thing he did, and the even that like Dr. Susie thing he did with Channel 101. You can see all that kind of coming together, which is pretty cool. I had another follow-up question, but I'm blanking on it. If anybody else had something.
Yeah, I have some questions.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nick.
So you had mentioned LinkedIn, which I thought was pretty odd. So job hunting on LinkedIn and networking via LinkedIn. I don't think I've seen many people come on the show and like talk about LinkedIn in a positive light ever.
Yeah. I never use my LinkedIn.
Yeah, I don't really either. I get messages on it, but it's always from people trying to connect with me, trying to get a job. I never got a job through LinkedIn. Do you find that?
I get weirdo jobs from studios in Malaysia on LinkedIn, but they still pay, and they're real shows that do end up going places. You know, LinkedIn is a very professional network, but yeah, so say, you know, you go to like a meet and greet in Burbank, and you meet a bunch of people, and you get their business cards, and you type them all into LinkedIn, then you can see what's going on. You know, you can see like, oh, you know, today at Titmouse, this is what we did. And you know, you've got like a look into the industry, and then everybody's a little bit more behaved than Twitter. And then also when you like or comment, great, I love the way that show looks or whatever. And then under your name, it says freelance writer. And you never know in whose news feed that day is going to say, congrats on the new show. And then it says freelance writer, and they might click on you and ask you to write something. And especially if you're based in LA, or if you went to Cal Arts, or, you know, it's just this like walking resume that exists.
Yeah. So you said earlier that you really get enjoyment out of writing preschool shows because like you get to kind of inform the mindset of these children at an early age when they're very impressionable. Would you ever want to transition to adult like writing? Like you did that South Park spec script. Would you ever want to go back to that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I love South Park and like there's a lot of like Central Park looks awesome. I haven't seen it yet, but Bob's Burgers and stuff. And there is the other thing is about that industry, because the adults are different than the kids stuff, is that you're up against the stand-up comedians, you're up against the sitcom writers, you're up against, and I don't think I'm like there yet for that stuff, you know, like I don't, and I don't really, and that was also a struggle too with the Saturday Night Live packet that I put together. Like my commentary on being an adult in 2020, I'm not really sure where I fall, and maybe that's a generational thing, but I don't really know what my unique perspective or joke would be on anything now in 2020. I know that I want to make the world a better place, and I want to be like, so with kids stuff, you're just able to just have so much wholesome fun and really escape. Like it's, to me, like writing for kids is like a complete portal out of the world that we're in. And I feel like sometimes the adult writing is still being an adult and how it sucks in the world.
A lot of like,
coming from like a place of relevance, like you have to relate to something, you know, as an adult and everything. You're not really like quite up to relate to people as well as like a lot of the comedic writers are out there. It's easier to write for like a preschooler because you're literally just going to like your pure authentic place and where rules aren't set, or like a joke hasn't been established yet or something like that. You know, like nobody has to get it. Like, oh, I get that joke or something. I know what they're talking about. Like, there's no underlying joke to something, you know?
I can see that. Yeah. So there's not as much, you're not doing as many like jokes about topical humor, right? So it's not like you're not making a Trump joke in Robot Trains.
Yes, no, it's and then it also with kids stuff, you have to be timeless. So, you know, to have that quality that in 30 years they don't watch it, and like the Smurfs, you know, you watch it now and you go, man, this has not aged at all well. But as you say, if you want to make a timeless kids cartoon, like that's slapstick, that's physical humor, that's like wholesome, that's also not fat shaming, that's not, you know, and then it makes you just, I really think it's making me a better person because I'm constantly thinking about like, oh, you know, that's not a nice thing for the two characters to say. That's the easy thing to say, is to beat up on each other.
Yeah, sure. That's actually a really interesting point. Like, you have to, things that, it's funny because like watching cartoons as a kid, like you don't know how to separate like hyperbole, you know, or like sarcasm. Like you're watching things as a little kid and you're kind of taking it for gospel when you hear it sometimes. Not all kids, every kid's different. I was a very naive and dumb kid, so things I saw, I thought everything was true. Like whatever I saw, I thought was true. So it's important to kind of pick your words carefully, I guess, to make sure you're not kind of, even if it's a little thing, you know, it could be exacerbated in a way, like if two guys are arguing and somebody calls them chubby or something. I don't know. But so something I noticed about a lot of adult cartoons is that kind of there's a big wave of like nihilistic kind of humor, you know, like everything's kind of meaningless and you know, there's people, you know, violence is abundant and all that stuff. And I know, like, obviously when you're writing for adult cartoons, there's good writing, obviously, like BoJack Horseman or like I don't know, Rick and Morty has some of that, has some of the nihilistic sense as well. But what's one of your favorite written adult shows, and what's one of your favorite written kid shows? I guess animation, but I mean anything really.
Yeah, I think like South Park completely turns society on its head and shows it back to us, and I think that's brilliant and amazing. And I think The Simpsons did that, you know, definitely canon years, first season to 10th season, and even now does that as well. But I think as a kid, it was also not something that you recognize. Mm-hmm. I think Bob's Burgers is kind of like a real traditional like family show where it's sort of wholesome and touching that way. And you know, there's so many and Midnight Gospel completely is in a new world of its own, and we'll see like how many shows are going to kind of come out of that direction.
Well, Midnight Gospel was, I guess that was kind of written but also ad-libbed, right? Because it was like from the podcast that Duncan Trussell was doing
exactly
over like 10 years.
But crafted, and they do a lot of voice-overs and like even just the crafting of it kind of boggles my mind, or even just the way that they do the animation totally on a different journey side of the things. So yeah, that's it. And yeah, and kids stuff, like I'm always loving, I mean, Green Eggs and Ham, what came out of the Warner Brothers.
Oh my
absolutely
God,
stunning.
So
like
much.
Just one of the most gorgeous pieces of work and that anyone, and I mean they had the budget for it, so
that show like took 2 years to make or like longer than that to make a season. I know. Yeah, the writing was good and the animation was mind blowing.
And the voice acting, like just absolutely incredible work. Like Green Eggs and Ham, just stunning piece of art that I think a lot of people. The new Looney Tunes are just amazing. Like they really hold up. They went back to the traditional way of things, and you know, for kids, like it's an ever-changing atmosphere. I think that, you know, there's always these trends going on, but everything that I would say like Disney's making now, they're really making some exciting stuff. Amphibia was really great. I had a chance to work on that for a little bit, and I just love that show. So yeah, it's all like branching out, and it's booming more than ever. Like it's really unbelievable.
That's pretty amazing. I know I have to end up actually, I have a kind of hard out around 8 o'clock, so I want to make sure we're touching on all bases here. So is there anything else that about your animation journey that you want to kind of fill in the audience here. I feel like we touched on so much, starting from your humble beginnings in the theater, right? You moved all over the place. You were in Germany, then you were in London, and then you ended up in Los Angeles. Is there anything that we left out that you want to talk about?
Just, I think a lot of people don't understand that it's a lot of work, and it's like for 500 business cards that you might get printed and you hand all of those out, maybe 2 people are going to help you, but it's what you do with those 2 people that'll help you, and how far you go, and how you show them that you will work harder. Like if you think about all the little bumps that I had from sending in a South Park spec for a kid's show and then turning around, it's that kind of relentlessness that will break you through.
Yeah. So some of the takeaways I have from some of the story you told were the fact that you should have a script ready and you should have an original script of the genre that you want to make and write ready to go and send at a moment's notice. Which I think is really important advice for anybody that is aspiring writer listening right now. I feel like that was the most important thing we heard. I'm sure there's a lot of other really good advice too, but that's just like a nice, hard, easy fact. The fact that you were hustling and following people around, cold emailing. I love that. I'm a production guy. I love spreadsheets. And the fact that you had that spreadsheet that you marked yellow and then you waited for several months and you marked red, to me, that was like, that's great. I love that idea. So, there's a lot of really good advice like peppered throughout here. And I think anybody that's listening that wants to be a writer can probably, follow a lot of your example,
Or have 3 questions.
Sure.
Answer that before we start wrapping up.
Sure. We have questions from fans.
Yeah, there's one regular fan, Eric Paintbra.
Yeah, I remember Eric.
He asked what the work-life balance is like for a head writer during normal times, so not Corona times.
Yeah. Well, it's always studios, so I'll deliver 5 episodes maybe at a time, so 5 scripts. And then you get like weird days off some days. So some days you get like nonstop, you're working on Sundays, and when you get those days off, you take those days off. And actually what I do is I just watch movies. So I feel like also as a writer and creative person, you just we're always outputting. And then when I finally get a day off, it's input, and just sit there and just absorb the world around you and, think about it and try to make as much space as possible. But studios, you never know when you just get an email, and that's been, something to deal with. You might get an email on a Sunday afternoon. All these 5 scripts, we changed the location, or now it's snowing or whatever, and we need that changed in all these 5 scripts. And so you just have to be ready to go at it and do it. And also that idea of working a 9-to-5 thing is completely gone.
Sure. Makes sense.
The other two questions are really simple. One is, have you met Rebecca Sugar?
I haven't, but I'm a big fan. I think I saw her one time get into a car at Comic-Con. That was it.
I met her once at an art gallery. It was pretty fun. I was very shocked. I was with my friend. This was before I worked in animation, by the way, when I was just an animation fan. My first year in LA, I was kicking around trying to get in a door. And I was with a friend of mine who's loud, boisterous, and just doesn't know when to shut up. And I was just in an art gallery, and he saw Rebecca Sugar, and he ran over to her, and he's like, "My friend's a big fan of yours."
Oh,
and I'm like,
right. Sure, we can get her on.
I'm working on it.
The last question is from Justin Marchert. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, I'm sorry. What's the Futurama game?
Oh, we did a game called Game of Drones with Futurama, and it was a drone match 4 game that upset a lot of people because we did we worked with Fox on the game, and but of course Futurama fans to do kind of Candy Crush style game, which it was in the end. Of course, isn't the type of games that they like, but the art and the story, we worked really hard to keep that to the traditional Futurama, and I think we did a really good job of that. But the core gameplay was a little bit disappointing.
I gotta test it out, and then I'll give you a full review next week.
It's just Candy Crush with a Futurama skin.
Steffi, it was. Do we have any other questions, guys?
I had one.
Oh yeah, sure.
What was your most worth it festivals you've been to?
Hennessy. Like, go see what the Europeans are doing. Go see what the rest of the world is doing in animation, because it's beautiful, it's stunning, it's artistry. It's maybe for 5 intellectuals at the back of a theater, but it's absolutely brilliant. And it makes you realize, like, we're really in an industry because we're in the States and in North America as well. But, like, there's people who just create absolutely stunning things that don't get a lot of money for it and are doing it for the hell of it. And that's what we should all be doing. You know, I think a lot of those studios get funded by the government and stuff, and I don't think it's easy for everybody to do that. But if you can go to Annecy, it's on one of the most beautiful locations in the world. It's at the foot of the Alps on a beautiful lake. It's in France. Everybody's relaxed, and then all the executives are there. You know, and so you bump into Netflix all the time. You're bumping into people from all over the place, and everyone's in a good mood because they're in France.
Nice. What's a ticket cost for Hennessy?
So Annecy is, I think, about 1,500 euros to go, and then to get there, it's not too cheap. But actually, that's to get into the business side of it. If you just want to go to the festivals and see the stuff, I think it's much cheaper.
Okay.
But yeah, it probably total would cost you about $3,000.
Gotcha. So Brian, do you have any Brian's words of wisdom? Oh wait, Sabrina, you have another.
Sabrina has something.
We have one last question. And that's it. Well, then I was like, that's it. Eric Paintbra asked, where is it? Oh, what's the most inspiring movie writing-wise that you've seen?
Oh, inspiring movie writing-wise. That I've seen. That's really hard because I've been watching so many Monster B movies lately. Oh, dude, you know what? The Incredible Shrinking Man. That was really well done. Yeah, I would check that out because you know what it's about, but they just take you on such a good ride, and it's a psychological thing, and you think it's a monster movie, but it's about being human, and they did like some brilliant like film work and stuff, you know, for the time, and I'd really recommend that.
Out of curiosity, what punk band were you in? You said you were in a punk band a few times. I love all types of music. Just curious, what was the name of your band, and if I can.
The band was called the Poly Monsters, and because it was in Germany, it was a techno punk band. So because they love everything with techno, so it's
techno in Germany. Yeah.
It's like techno with me screaming over it. So I don't know if you'd call that
scream.
I'll listen to it.
Dude,
it's a very
like cartoon screaming. Even if you look up that band, it's very cartoony. We dressed as monsters, but we dressed as like silly monsters, and we just did silly things. Yeah.
Poly Monsters, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Poly Monsters.
Our hit song was "You Didn't See It Coming."
Well, I'm gonna search it now and listen to it while I feed my cat.
Okay.
And then Brian, words of wisdom.
Yeah, because like I know Stephie pretty well, so just to buttress on like how much he hustles, like you're always looking up group activities for like writers and industry people and like social get-togethers. We're like, let's go to this, and like even if you can't throw down like $3,000 or $6,000 or even like $100 to go attend a festival, if you're in an area, if you luckily are in an area like New York, Los Angeles, London, Paris, wherever, and you can attend free like get-togethers and social seminars, look up on Facebook where industry people gather, or even like in Burbank, there's like a coffee shops where a lot of animation people hang out, drink and draws and such. Go to those things and do the same networking you would do at Annecy. There's not executive level, because executives, of course, have more power. They actually have hiring and firing power. But just going to one of those events, meeting your peers, talking to them, developing those relationships and social relationships will also help you navigate the industry, get into the industry if you're new to it, work on collaboratives. All those things are important. There's no one right way. You just don't have to go to the boss and ask for a job. You can develop contacts with peers and people trying to hustle just like you. So that would be my words of wisdom. You don't have to
Yes,
drop.
go to meetups.
Yeah, you don't have to drop $6,000 if you can't afford that.
No, yeah. Go to meetups.com.
Sure, yeah. Now there's even digital meetups that are going on during Corona, so that's happening now. I mean, right before Corona hit, there was a lot of women in animation stuff going on like every Wednesday, so that was really good. Cool.
And it's in every town too. Like you can't even like I'm helping a girl out from Morocco right now become a writer, and like I was like maybe there's something in Morocco that you can go, and there's meetups of animation people all over the world. You just have to. You've got the internet in front of you. You just have to find them. And then right now they're just Facebook groups, but there's a lot of stuff going on in those groups and discussions. So join that stuff.
Very cool. Well, Stephie, you gave some really, really great, poignant advice, and you gave some really cool experiences. And the fact that you're a world traveler impresses me, because anytime anybody does that, because that's something I want to aspire to. I want to travel all over the place, and seeing you do that inspires me. So I'm going to try to do some of that in the future. But yeah, no, your story was great. I loved, I loved the fact that you were so persistent in getting those executives to notice you, being loud and getting noticed, putting your name out there, talking to everybody. All really good advice for aspiring writers. So I'm sure a lot of people that are listening and watching this, maybe they don't have the artistic talent. They're not the writer. They're not the animators or the drawers that a lot of our other guests are. But they love animation and they want to get involved. And now they have an in, and they are thinking of their way to do that, which is really cool. Does anybody else have anything else to say?
That's it.
Cool, man. Well, Stephie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys. My pleasure.
A blast having you. I really enjoyed everything that you had to say, so thanks so much. It was great having you in the ass.
I like it.
Yeah.
Maybe something to meet in person for a second interview.
That'd be great in Burbank.
Yeah, around all the stuffed animals. Everybody, well, thanks for tuning in to Animation Success Stories podcast. Thanks again, Stephie Theodora. Where can these people find you online, Stephie?
So yeah, just at Stephie Theodora on all the social media stuff.
Social media.
Space.
Well, we'll hopefully see everybody back here next time we chat, right here in the ass. All right, everybody, peace out. Thanks again, Stephie, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff.